I will tell you a story about something terrible that happened on Halloween. This story is true, so they say, and it made my hair stand on end just to hear it. It all happened many years ago in my town, which, at that time, was just a little town between the mountains of Catalonia, Spain. The town was little more than a small square with a church, a park, a prison and a school, with all the houses clustered around. The town was very proud of their school since it had been voted the best school in the province. It was the morning of October 31st, Halloween, and a class of students were doing arts and crafts in their classroom. Some were cutting skeletons out of sheets of paper, some were painting vampire bats and others were drawing pumpkins. The students were all aged between 8 and 9 years old. Their teacher was a beautiful young woman who had only been working at the school for 1 month. While the children were having fun, preparing the Halloween decorations, the teacher turned the radio to listen to the weather forecast. She was planning to organize an outdoor Halloween party for the kids later that day and wanted to be sure that it wouldn't rain. Suddenly, the weather forecast was interrupted by a news bulletin. This is an important announcement. A convicted murderer has escaped from the local prison and is on the loose. He is described as armed and very dangerous. Please, do not attempt to apprehend him. The police will. The teacher rushed across the room and switched off the radio. She did not want to alarm the children, but it was too late. The children had all heard the broadcast and were very frightened by the news. They knew that the prison was very near the school. The teacher tried to reassure them and told them not to worry. A few minutes later, the school principal made an announcement over the intercom. Attention all teachers. We have been informed that police are dealing with a very serious situation that is occurring right now in the town. All teachers are advised to lock the doors and windows of their classrooms until the police get this situation under control. I repeat, lock all doors and windows until further instruction. That is all. The teacher told the class to stay calm. She took out her key and locked the classroom door. Then she went around and closed every window, making sure that they were secure and nobody could get in. One little girl raised her hand and asked if she could go to the bathroom. The teacher didn't want to let her go, but the girl insisted. The teacher finally relented and gave her permission to go to the toilet. After all, it was unlikely that the murderer would come to the school. She told the girl that, when she came back, she would have to give a secret knock at the classroom door. Then they would know that it was her and they could let her back in. The code was 3 taps and 2 scratches. Tap tap tap. Scratch scratch. The girl left to go to the bathroom and the teacher locked the door behind her. To take the children's minds off the scary situation, she started telling stories. After 20 minutes had passed and the girl still had not returned, the teacher began to get worried. What's taking her so long? She wondered out loud. Suddenly, they could hear footsteps in the corridor. Everybody in the classroom froze. Then they heard a noise at the door. Tap tap tap. Scratch scratch. She's back, sighed the teacher in relief. She walked over, took out her key. What if it's not her? Asked one little boy who was shivering with fright. The teacher hesitated, her key inches from the lock. Again they heard a noise at the door. Tap tap tap. Scratch scratch. It must be her, said the teacher. She put the key into the door and unlocked it. Suddenly, the classroom door burst open and a tall man was standing there. In his right hand, he was holding a knife, and in his left hand, he was holding the little girl's severed head. The escaped murderer came into the classroom, smiling from ear to ear. The children were trapped inside. All that could be heard in the corridors of the school were screams of terror and squeals of pain. In the chaos, the teacher managed to break a window and jump out. She barely escaped with her life and crawled to safety. The children, however, were not so lucky. When the police arrived, they found the murderer sitting in the middle of the classroom. The floor, walls and ceiling were covered in blood. Little body parts lay scattered around him. He had chopped up every child in the class into tiny pieces. They found the headless body of the little girl in the third stall of the bathroom. The police figured out what had probably happened that cold October day. The escaped prisoner must have been hiding in the toilet when the girl was asking for permission to go to the bathroom. He must have surprised her in the stall and forced her to tell him the password. When she did, he cut off her head. Today, the teacher is in a psychiatric hospital. She never recovered from the incident and can't stop repeating over and over again, tap tap tap. Scratch scratch. Tap tap tap. Scratch scratch. The school was abandoned because parents refused to send their children there. There were too many bad memories. The school was left just the way it was when the murders occurred. They say that if you visit the old school building and go into the classroom, you can still see the blood still dripping down the walls. If you are brave enough, you could even go to the bathroom. Just tap 3 times and scratch 2 times on the door of the third stall. Then open it. You will see the headless body of the little girl sitting on the toilet. Halloween night. On Halloween night in 2002, 4 young girls were walking down a lonely street when they passed by an old church. Standing outside was a man dressed in a clown costume. He asked the girls if they had seen his puppy. When they said that they hadn't seen it, the man asked them to help him find the lost dog. The girls agreed to help in the search, and the man in the clown costume led them into the old church. As soon as they went through the door, the man locked it behind him, trapping them in the old building. The girls realized that they had been tricked, but it was too late. They tried to flee, but he was too fast for them. The man tied the girls up and kept them in the old church for hours. He did unspeakable things to them, and their screams echoed off the marbled walls, the wooden rafters and the ornate ceiling. After he had his fun, the poor unfortunate girls thought he would let them go. But they were wrong. He killed them one by one and then escaped into the night. People who saw the Clo walking down the street didn't think anything of it, because it was Halloween night and many people were wearing costumes. If only they had known that his clown costume was red because it was covered in blood. The next morning, the local priest was surprised to find the church doors were unlocked. He went inside and, in the darkness, he heard a mysterious dripping sound. As he walked down the aisle, he saw a pool of blood lying on the altar. He quickly turned on all the lights in the church and gasped in horror at the terrifying sight that met his eyes. The dripping sound was coming from the headless bodies of 4 young girls that were hanging upside down from the rafters. Their blood was dripping down from the bloody stumps of their necks and forming a pool on the altar. But worse was yet to come. The girls' bodies were buried in the small cemetery behind the church. Just a few weeks later, their parents received 4 mysterious packages in the mail. When their parents unwrapped the packages and opened the boxes, they recoiled in horror. The boxes contained the severed heads of their dead daughters. Some people say that if you visit that old church on Halloween night, you will see the ghosts of the 4 young girls standing on the altar. According to the legend, you can still hear their screams echoing in the darkness. To this day, the man who murdered the girls has never been found. So, if a man ever comes up to you and asks you to help him find his lost puppy, remember this story.